Welcome back to This Takes the Cake podcast. I'm Sarah Turpin, owner of Stunning and Brilliant Events in our Hilton Head and Savannah office. And I have a special guest with me today. Sandra, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sandra von Riekhoff, and I live in London and originally hail from Canada, so that's why the English accent really isn't there.
Nice. Sandra is a UK-based photographer who has shot weddings all around the world, and you have been published in Vogue, Vanity Fair, and other very well-known publications. You're a big deal, and we're so excited that you're with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the wedding industry.
Okay, so this one I think is similar story to just about every photographer who shoots weddings. It was an accident, and I went to school for fashion design, and wasn't very good at sitting around the cutting tables at 3 a.m. and got quite frustrated when I couldn't do a pocket. So then moved over to photography because there's that instant gratification. I also painted quite a bit, and then moved straight into the fashion world, and did that for a while, and then into fashion photography. A friend of mine was getting married, and she asked me to do her pictures, and I was breeding. I had 3 kids in the space of 23 months, so it was hard to keep up the pace of the fashion photography, and I thought doing the odd weekend wedding sounded much better, and that was 18 years ago.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I wish I knew how to sew something. I just can't even do it. I love fashion. I think it's beautiful and it's an amazing process. And photography is so special. And I think every photographer is different in what they do. And just looking at your work online, it's amazing. And you can tell that you have a fashion background because of the way that you shoot. I just love it. I think it's great.
Thanks, girl.
Yes. So we connected. You are a preferred vendor at a venue in Spain. I have a wedding there upcoming in the fall, so we connected that way with a client.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's how we got connected. But today's topic is Divine Day and shooting worldwide and all about your life. So let's get into it. So let's go ahead and get into it. Tell us what drew you to capturing weddings. I know you talked a little bit about your friend, but what made you continue with capturing weddings?
Yeah, I have to be really honest with you. It's just really hard to get back into fashion with 3 small children, and it requires so much networking and the nights and all the kind of accoutrements that go along with that. And then at some point, I had a life. Well, my experience changed so that I wasn't married anymore, and I had 3 kids of my own. And so doing any transition back to fashion was going to be difficult. So, and I created kind of a thing. So I thought I'll just plunge, just go full throttle with all this experience that I'd already had. I had, almost 10 years under my belt. So I thought it'd be a shame to throw that away, and went headlong into it. So I think I'm answering one of your questions here.
No, go
I
for
hired a PR person, and that actually helped elevate me to another level that I hadn't reached before. So a new stratosphere. And after that, within a year, I'd shot a royal wedding, which was a big deal for me in that it opened up a lot of new clients at a different level. And then, of course, some of the PR gets free at that point because off of the back of their own name, then your name kind of slides along with it, which is wonderful. It's still worth doing PR. I'll be doing more of that as well. I think it's really important for photographers to, there's a few things that are really important to do, but definitely having someone in charge of your marketing who knows what they're doing is really key. You know about that.
Oh, yes. We love Peyton. She's our marketing girl. We love her.
Yeah. Having someone doing that full time is worth every penny. So that I think I paid around £15,000 for the year on PR alone. And it paid back in dividends. It really did. It was worth every penny.
It truly is. It really, really, yeah,
Does that
it
answer your
truly
question?
is. Absolutely. Yeah. So
Oh, we
you
paused.
mentioned the royal wedding. Can we talk about it?
Oh yeah, I mean it's
Okay.
NDA, so there's nothing to get into really saucy. But it was Princess Eugenie's wedding. One of her friends did the church bit, and then I did the other bit where we went back to the house, and then there was a following day, and
Yeah.
that's about all I can say about it. But
Okay. How
she's
did they
fabulous.
find you? Just
So
your
that was part of this PR thing. I had been let into this inner circle of preferred vendors for something that used to exist in London called the Wedding Gallery, and it was just kind of a selection of the best dresses and makeup artists and stationery and photographers. And I think there was only 6 photographers. And what was really great was that they allowed they had a screening room, which was good for both photographers and for videographers because you could sit down on a chair and watch a slideshow. Or in my case, I was one of the only ones who did a piece to camera. In fact, I think I was the only one who did a piece to camera. So it made it easier for anyone to go in there and feel like they kind of knew who they were dealing with.
Mhm.
So that seemed to do well for me. But yeah, again, just sliding in through this connection that my PR guy had to the wedding gallery because he was helping them set it up. So having a wedding specific PR person was super helpful.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah. It's all about networking. It's all about who you know. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's insane
absolutely.
that you have done a royal wedding. And to like see them, we see them everywhere and then to be able to talk to you is just it's really cool.
Oh, I'm just special.
Um
You're so sweet.
let's see. What do you consider the most important elements of wedding photography?
Okay, good. I thought a lot about this one. I had a lot
Good.
of driving hours to think about this. Oh my God, what's the most? So it's like and you said plural, like what are the most important elements, which is it's so important. I'm glad that you didn't say element because there's
Right?
no element. It's absolutely it's a salad, it's the orchestra, it's all these moving parts.
Yes.
And I think we could be here for days if I listed them all out, but I won't do that to you or your poor guests. So I'll try to keep it pithy and succinct here. And I wrote it down so I didn't forget anything. Did I? Where did I? Okay. What are the challenges? Okay. Okay. So the biggest thing for me is the pre-planning part. And the pre-planning is a beefy topic because number one, I think it's important I think most photographers now have figured out that you've really got to vet your clients to make sure it's a fit with you and that you're aligned. And once you vetted them, people kind of come and they say, so are you available and how much? Well, I mean, back the truck up, sister.
Right? Yeah.
Let's just first figure out if we're a fit. So
Yes.
I like to see any mood boards that they have going on. And before I send anybody a rate card, I really want to have a powwow, and some people are really just straight to the point that, listen, I don't have a lot of time. I'm a busy lawyer and I'm just trying to get some quotes in, and fine, occasionally that happens. But I do try to get on the phone with people. I think most people are like that as well. So if there is an alignment there and it all seems great, then the next part, sorry, I'm just reading my notes, so I'm not looking
You're
at the
fine.
camera,
You're
which is
fine.
very off-putting, I'm sure. The pre-planning part is try to get a pre-shoot in with the couple. And the point of that is to, first of all, the dude on the wedding day probably won't give you more than 17 seconds to take any
Right.
portraits if you don't first demonstrate how long it takes to get anything.
Yeah.
So a good hour will fly by and they've had fun and we've got some images and you've been chatting in between. So for them now 20 minutes on the day seems like, well, that's quite quick. Fun.
Hmm.
Um, and then also it's kind of like any new skill that you learn, the first pancake, that's what we call it. The first pancake's always really
Yep.
shitty.
It's awful.
So I'm just like,
I
don't
don't make
expect
pancakes because I can't do
don't
it.
expect anything from this first shoot. Like really go easy on yourself. And so what I do is I come to the pre-shoot with some ideas from them and myself on what we
Hmm.
want from this. What are these pictures going to look like? Have you got any inspiration pictures? I've got some. If you don't have any, fine. But here's what we're going to do. I might come up with 5 or 6 kind of looks or poses or whatever and just show it to them. And so we're doing this. And I think that takes that pain out. So you're standing there kind of like naked, alone, vulnerable, wondering what the fuck to do with my hands and my face and how should I move, you know? So if you just kind of show them that, and then in between you get those moments where you're like, okay, so now walk to me, just have a little chat, talk about work. I don't care. Just talk and walk. And there's little in between moments. And then after a while, they're a little bit more chilled and you can get some kind of candid stuff with them. So that's the kind of pre-shoot stuff. And then of course the bonus of that pre-shoot is that on the wedding day itself, you're not a complete stranger and there's not that stranger danger thing that goes on where they're all weirded out. So it's just, you're part of the crowd. Then the other thing, back to this thing with sharing images, is I try to get, once that's done, I find it much easier for people to get an idea of what they want from their wedding photos. They're more able to send me a mood board of what hits them, which makes it much easier for me to feel like I've got some kind of confidence around what I'm going to give them. So I'll have ideas, and sometimes their ideas are outstanding and like really something to kind of emulate. You know, you come with this one seed, which is that picture that they've sent you, and then you bounce off that and create something completely new. It's not necessarily like replicating the Rolex watch or anything. But yeah, that really helps me. And then once, so I do a lot of destination weddings. I'm not really able to go see the property, you know, weeks before or do any of that stuff. And frankly, so I never bother. But what I do is get to the venue really early in the morning, figure out, you know, with the compass where the light's going to move. You know, if you have like recently went to one, it just rained mud the entire wedding. But anyway, if you got late, you know where it's going, and then plan out where you're going to do the wedding photos. And then I choose 5 different spots around the venue itself where I know I'm going to get something really amazing and have an idea of what kind of pose we're going to do in it, so that I'm not making stuff up on the fly when it comes to that moment. It's really quick. It's super efficient. I know what I'm doing. They know what they're doing. I've tested the light. Everything works. Boom, you're done. And then if there's time, you can get stuff in between. If I don't do that, I find it just that the end result is not as awesome. You know, yeah. So there's that part, the pre-planning stuff. When it comes to pre-planning the shots for the portraits for the family, I have basically a system. So I'll look for something that feels architectural. So say it's whatever venue it is, there'll be some part of that venue that has some kind of architectural feature, not just a beautiful bush. And then the second part is that place going to be a place where I can control the lighting? So is it shaded? If it's indoors, can I light it myself? I don't want light behind, because for the old folks, the light will go behind their light hair and make them look bald. This is not a look. No, it's not pretty. And then the squinty one, occasionally there's just no other choice. You might get the sun on face thing. Yeah, and then also it's got to be somewhere that's logistically makes sense for people. So that's that part of the pre-planning. Then the other part that's very important to have is, so I have an approach which isn't that unique. I think it's becoming less and less unique, but it really works. And I hope more people pick it up, which is to say that I try to think of me as like a cousin with a camera. So if you've got a seat for me at the table, that's going to help me give you better pictures. If there's a pre-wedding gather the day before, I'm going to come with a camera. It's going to be mostly about me just having drinks with people and talking to people, not so much about which images you get, but more just inserting myself as like part of the crowd. And so what happens is by day 2, once people have a drink, you're one of them. The reactions that you'll get from people, the way that they let you in is completely different. The imagery is different. So that's super important. Are you the kind of person that, you know, can do, I mean, if you don't drink, that's fine too, but of course it helps.
Always helps.
Yeah. So being one of the guests. And then I think having, the other thing is, I mean, the first 10 years of my career was a very steep learning curve. so knowing where to be at what time, if A happens, then I know B, C, and D are likely to happen. Those are the three scenarios of what am I going to do with B, C, and D? Where will I be for those eventualities? And having a thought. So you kind of, all pistons are firing at all time. And, having, you asked me about who I'm inspired by. I think having clear ideas of who you are inspired by and what you're channeling on the day will help make sure that these are unique, interesting images, and that all of this is just like a medley. I'm probably missing 400 things, like I said, but I think that's the crux of it.
Yeah, no, I think all of that is super important on wedding day. Building the relationship and making people feel comfortable is, one of the most important things, especially for photos, because we're not all models. We're not all Instagram models. We don't know what we're doing. And
No.
so having somebody there to be able to say to you, okay, do this or relax or whatever, before wedding day is good. I'll hear a bunch of brides say, I don't know what to do. Or like the grooms will say, I don't
Yeah,
know what to do.
I don't
And the
know what to
photographer
do.
will, yeah,
Yeah,
photographer steps in and kind of tells them, like you were saying, talk to each other. Like it's your wedding day. Just pretend I'm not here. And
yeah,
I haven't seen another photographer do this, but you were talking about how you just kind of like jump in with everybody and enjoy yourself and get to know others. And I think that's so important because you are going to get those more natural photos from people, those
100%. Yeah,
candids from them.
yeah,
And you are going to get a side that most other photographers aren't going to get.
yeah.
And yeah, I just think that's important as a wedding planner. We kind of stay behind everything. Because we just want to let them be. I might jump in here and there and
Yeah,
go dance with the bride for like 10
yeah,
seconds and
cute.
then I'll just make my way out because maybe
Yeah.
I'm asking her a question, but I don't want her to stop dancing. So I'm dancing with her. And, everybody always wants us to drink. Like, I'm not going to drink with you because I'm dancing. If something goes wrong, I got to go handle
No,
it.
honey, you
Plus,
can't.
I'm working.
Yeah, no, you have
So,
to. It's not fair, and
yeah.
I
No, I
often
know.
feel a
It's
bit
every
guilty,
single
but
wedding. You're like, can
yeah,
you at least have one drink? I'm like, no, absolutely not. I'm
no.
like, do you drink when you're at work? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to either. So,
Yeah, it's
but
a
I get
different
it.
different set of rules,
It
which not
is.
every planner really understands.
Yes.
Um, but actually, to the point of planning, I think back to what's really these elements that help make you better is understanding that flow of a wedding day and being able to prep them far in advance by saying things like, okay, so realistically, if you're over 100 guests, you're going to want to have around 2 to 2:15 on the reception, because if you don't, you're going to miss it, A, and B, I'm going to scramble unless I've got an amazing second to get any of that part. And then another one that I often recommend people do is to think about, even making it 2.5, say for that 100 and 120 guest size or more. Think about potentially doing one of the speeches during that reception period.
Hmm.
Because what happens is, A, if it's, say, for example, the groom that does this, it acts like a welcome. You've definitely got a captive audience. You know this one.
Yes.
Not enough people do this, in my opinion. So you've got this captive audience. They're there. I think it's nice. So you go, you do your family photos. You have like 2 drinks just to kind of like, get some liquid courage in you. And then, glass hits fork, and then get the groom speech out of the way. Then he's got that off his shoulders. Or if they're doing the speech together, it's now get this done. It photographs beautifully because now I can get full length reaction shots if it's the bride or whoever it is. The whole scene, it's so much better than that, like, um, 2 bottles of wine covering your cheeks, and
Yep.
then maybe a salt and pepper up your nose, and everything is kind of like shut down, and you're standing in front of someone blocking their view, and you're really kind of cognizant that maybe you're pissing somebody off, or
Right.
yeah. So then of course, what's great about that is, that's at least one less speech that everybody has to kind of suffer. Maybe
Yeah.
they're really good speeches and they're really entertaining, but usually people with a full stomach of food are really interested in tequila.
Yes, they are. They are.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. So in planning weddings overseas versus America, I think they're a little bit different in the
yeah,
way that we do reception, because you'll do ceremony and then we'll have cocktail hour, but then reception is dinner and dancing, but it's all kind of in the same place and it's in the same realm, and it's not different parts of the night. So, after cocktail hour, we go in and we try to do toast and special dances and cake cutting and all of that beforehand, and then they eat dinner, and then as soon as dinner is over, it's time for dancing, because people don't
Yeah.
want to sit and wait.
No.
Or sometimes, what we'll do is bring everybody in, let them have dinner. When dinner's almost finished is when we start toast, because people are finishing eating and they're not really sure like what to do next. So, hey, let's have some people talk, and then it's time for dancing as soon as they're done, and you don't have to do the
Yeah.
formalities anymore.
Yeah.
And I just think it's interesting, whereas overseas, I've noticed that it's all kind of broken up a little bit differently. It doesn't, not that it doesn't flow well, it's not like all together. Like, we're going to have the ceremony and then we might go have some kava or whatever it is. And is it a cocktail hour as we do in America? A little bit, but there might be some time in between the two. And then we're going to move on to dinner. And then once dinner's
Yeah.
done, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to go party for the rest of the night. And
Yeah.
they're going to party till 4 a.m. in UK versus the US. We're done at like 10, 11, 12.
It's crazy the difference.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It is so crazy, the
I did
differences
one
in it.
in LA last year, and I was just like, "You sure? You sure you're not done?
Yeah.
Is there an
Yep.
after?"
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. It goes on to the light, really. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Bananas.
does. Yes,
Does that answer the question?
it does. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
How do you balance artistic vision with client expectations?
Okay, that's an easy one. I've learned over the years that I'm going to get a way better result, stroke, reaction to the images with the couple if we are collaborating.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. You have to mesh well with your clients.
Oh
It's
my
so
God.
important.
Yeah.
It's so
And the thing
important.
is, I think in most people's portfolio, the breadth of styles, I mean, it's endless. And of course it is, because you're creative. And, my background in commercial photography was such that I would be given a brief and a mood board. And this one was really punchy, bright, and cute. And then this one is really kind of dark, subtle, and sexy. And the presets are completely different. And that, this is a 24. They want lots of wide angles. This one's really like, okay, these are portraits. So you've got to be able to flex in every direction. Meanwhile, you kind of need to build a brand as well. So you've got to like pick, who am I? I can be whoever you want, honey. But but with the expectations, what I found, which is really interesting, is that I'm not a PDA girl. So I don't really show a lot of like close, cuddly, saccharine, it's just not me. But then sometimes I have clients that come to me when I ask for those images. There's way more PDA than I would have been comfortable for. So it's really good to know that that's what they want.
Yeah, prepare yourself.
Because I wouldn't have done that naturally. And they want that, which I'm super happy to do. It's just not natural for me. In terms of, I wouldn't go put it on my board to give to them. But if they're giving it to me, then I know I've got happier people.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And I do think, so I try to learn a lot from photographers. I think you all have a lot to offer. And so I'll listen to photographers if I'm standing there while they're taking pictures. But also beforehand, trying to give brides advice of like, well, I don't really want all of these photos, or I don't want this, or do I really need photos of this, that, and the other? I'm like, you're not going to hang a picture up of the food that you ate. You might hang up your first kiss photo, but you're not going to hang up any other
Oh my God, yes.
photos
yes.
of you guys kissing each
you're
other.
cutting out.
Like, you're not going to hang up these weird little photos in your home. You're not going to share these weird photos of random objects that your photographer has taken photo of. So figure out what's important to you. What do you want on your walls? That's what you want photos of.
I think, so my view is that you're probably going to print out 5-ish, right? There might be a cutting the cake classic one, a confetti one, There'll be some with your family, maybe a few candidates with your friends that you really loved, or your bridesmaids or something. But any more than that, it's just overkill, and you just won't do that. And then you've got your album, of course. And so, to your point, when you're trying to figure out what you want recently, and I don't know why, only recently, I've been saying, okay, so um, I'm not really into doing a hanging dress shot anymore. I don't know what value that is. So if it happens to be hanging in this gorgeous room and the light's hitting it in this incredible way, for me, that's a moment. I'm totally going to capture it. But when I get asked to drag a gigantic dress around this, small room with low ceilings, it's why? Don't.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing
And
that.
yeah.
So,
And most of the time you
so
can see the light behind the dress. You can see through the dress. So you can see all of the lining, you can see all of the stitching, and it's like, for what? What is
for
this?
what? What do you?
Like
Yeah, exactly. So there's that thing of what, and it all comes and goes. All these different styles. There was a time when people they didn't take these dress shots, and like these flat lays. When are you doing the flat lay? I don't know if I'm doing a flat lay. I
yeah.
don't know if I want to do that. Like, I mean, if she really wants me to do a flat lay, I'll do a flat lay, but I'll
Right.
ask.
Right.
It's not, yeah. It might be that I put a piece of stationery and there's like a bust or something, a Roman bust, and I might just
Hmm.
sit in there. But that's true. I asked recently a bride, we talked about the hanging dress shot. And she's like, no, Sandra, I don't need that. Perfect. And I asked, would you rather me just to give you more of the architecture of this incredible building that you guys have rented? And she was all over that. So for
Yes.
her, it was just, I just want you to take in the scene. I don't need pictures of my shoes. They're shit.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just comfortable. They're white and
Yes.
comfortable. Leave them.
Yep. I do think photos of the venue, like the architecture, something beautiful about wherever you are, you're more likely going to use as a piece of artwork in your home
Yeah.
than your shoes. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? you
Yeah. And
know?
actually, that's true. You brought up the word art. And so that's another thing that I try to do at some point. And if I have seconds, I'll say it to them as well. Go out and take pictures of something in a way that you would frame it. It can be
Yes.
abstract, whatever it is, but make something that looks like a piece of art.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Lost you again. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, so that becomes part of the mix too.
What advice would you give to couples looking for a wedding photographer?
Okay, so the first thing is that I would want personally to see at least 5 full galleries of their work in different kind of situations. So say for example, I've got a wedding in Rome, maybe a couple Italian ones would be great to see, but then also other weddings from different parts of the world in different seasons, just so I can see their skill at different lighting situations. And how they treat different personalities, how they treat different locations with regard to family portraits, the art that we were talking about, the details, the architecture, lighting with flash, lighting with natural light, all of that. How they go from something that's really serene and beautiful, like the bridal portrait of just her, to the tequila infused mosh pit.
Yes.
So yeah, so I would want to see all that, and I think, frankly, I would look for someone that had at least 6 years in their retinue and around 300 weddings, something like that, just so that they've seen it all and they're
Yeah.
not flapping. Nothing
Yeah.
surprises them. Yeah, seen it
Yeah.
all before.
Yeah. Yes, that is great
And
advice.
then do the pre-shoot with them.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Um, we've
What
talked
would
a
you What
lot
would you say? What would be your advice? What is your advice? I'm sure you have advice
in picking.
in picking the right photographer.
Yes. So I recently had a client who's between two photographers right now. And she's
Yeah.
like, have you worked with either? Or what are your thoughts? And I never really want to tell a client what to do.
Sure.
As far as who they want to select, but I will help them figure out who's going to be best for them.
Yeah.
So I always ask them, like, who did you vibe with better? Whose photos have you looked at more and are thinking, like I said earlier, who are you
Mm-hmm.
going to put on your wall? Like, what photos do you like? If you're going back and forth because their package is the same. Who are you vibing with better? Because
Hmm.
they're the ones that are with you all day long. It's not me. I am going to be around and I'm going to be there, but the photographer is in your face all day long. So,
Yeah.
who do you want there? Look at their work. What have they done? Where have they been published? What do their photos look like? And, much like you
Hmm.
said, see what they have done and the different things that they have done.
Yeah.
I always try to tell clients, make sure that a photographer's work looks consistent, because you don't want it to change from one editing style for one client to another. And
Hmm.
I think that's more so in, are we sexy and moody, or are we light and airy? Because and please tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a photographer, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But
Please.
I think
Yeah.
that if when you start changing all of that, you're not consistent in what your work's going to look like. And so you want it to kind of
Yeah.
flow.
I hear that. I also, the other thing that I find is if you have a breadth of different styles within that one container of photographer, I'll have clients say, listen, Sandra, I find the dark stuff really depressing. Can you just make mine really bright and happy? And I'm
Hmm.
a really bright, colorful wedding. Can you edit those? I want to see the yellows. And then I'll have other clients that really, they want the desaturated greens, and um, they want things to feel a little more moody and a little bit more romantic. And I think there's still that vein that comes through. That's definitely, Sandra's in there somewhere.
Right.
But every wedding looks really different for me because I do that thing where I try to come meet them somewhere.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And also that's how I
Absolutely.
go, and how I think if
It's
I,
your style. It's how you're shooting, and it's your style, and we know that it's
and
you
it's
that's
also the
there, and you're
evolution too. That idea of
yes.
like you can't stay in the same spot forever. You've got to keep
Right.
changing and evolving. And I try to ask myself like the hanging dress thing again. That wasn't a thing at one point. What can I do
Yeah.
that becomes a thing? So now I've got this, this one shot that I love to do at the end of the night. And I can see people starting to do more of that as well, which is great. What else can I do that will be a thing that people really want that they didn't know they wanted that doesn't exist?
Yeah. Yes, that is always, I think that's the goal. Is what
Yeah.
can I do that somebody else isn't doing? And how can I make it a trend for
Yeah,
sure?
yeah.
Yeah.
And getting outside of, but which goes back to that mood board thing. So if you show people these shots in advance that are really, for example, it could be a bubblegum shot or a big group shot at the end of the night where everyone's kind of like crowded around. You do have to plant the seed because at that time that you want to take these shots, they're in their groove and they probably won't, they'll think, oh God, that sounds hectic and difficult. And this is kind of outside of my comfort zone. Oh, also, in that same vein is I've offered people kind of boudoir on the morning.
Hmm.
So I'll send pictures, kind of like a mood board of, do you want something like this? So there's this one shot, I think I've got my feed, which is she's just ostensibly naked. She's got her underwear on, she's back, and it's her back turned to the camera, and she's kind of fixing her veil. And
Hmm.
so if I show these kinds of shots, people 80% of the time really want them. But if I don't show it and they don't know it's there. I don't know,
Yeah.
do you find people are doing that more and more, like boudoir in the morning?
No, I
Yeah.
haven't. I haven't seen that, but that is really fun and a
Yeah.
little unexpected. And I bet the bride is feeling so good that day.
So sexy.
Yeah,
It's before
it's
she
her
starts to
wedding
eat all the
day,
pasta.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, for sure.
Yeah. That she's worked for that body. She's worked
Yeah,
hard for that body.
heck yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about clients, but I
Hmm.
want to roll into business a little bit. I want to talk more to you about business. Where do you see the wedding photography industry heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh my God, I think I need more time to think about that. But I wrote down some ideas.
Okay.
I know AI will be a part of it. Exactly how, I mean, at the moment we're seeing your images being culled by AI, which is really handy when you want to get rid of blinky shots. I've tried it. I don't like it. So I just like doing it myself because I find that the art is often in the mistakes, which AI will take out for you.
Hmm.
Um, Then when it comes to editing, again, I think a lot of people who just do the kind of straight up and down stuff and aren't too arty, but just take gorgeous shots of weddings, that's perfect for them. They're really going to benefit. And I know a lot of photographers that love it, use it, and saves them so much time. So that's fantastic. That means they can take on more weddings, I suppose, have more time with their family. Excellent. Meanwhile, we do see a lot of, pretty much everyone, their dog has a film camera now and is sort of expected to offer it. So I think
Yeah.
that will continue to a degree. So definitely, if you don't have that skill now, I'd get yourself, even if it's just a point and shoot or something. More and more Super 8. So Kodak's come out with a brand new vintage style Kodak Super 8 camera. So I'm hoping there'll be more people that do the processing, because that's a bit tricky.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to do. It's just, it's dead simple. It's made for amateurs, so it's not that technical. So I think having that as a photographer under your belt as well. I wouldn't do it unless I had a second shooter with me on the day. And then in terms of style, gosh, I think there's a lot of different directions, but I think maybe I'm seeing a lean more towards the human aspect and less of these kind of, like, the blur is going to go away. I think people want to see their faces again. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to know what I look like.
Right?
Yeah,
It's cool for
and
like an
flash.
Instagram post, but other than that, like,
Yeah. I still remember the first time I saw it, which wasn't all that long ago, and I thought, God, that's so cool. And then it's just sort of got overused, or at least it's done its path. Let's say it's gone through its journey.
Yeah.
So the flash thing is really hot right now. I think it'll probably stay around for a bit. And then also more wide angles, so more 24 coming in, I think. And again, drone. I think you're probably going to see that photographers are going to be expected to do a lot of all singing and all dancing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
cool.
there's that. Yeah, more
Well, you,
heart as well. I think more honesty and more heart. People, I think this generation is really cute and sweet and kind.
yeah,
More so than the who's mowing their lawn? It sounds amazing. It sounds like summer.
it is. I'm trying to
I
mute
love
my
that
mic.
sound.
There are weed eating right outside of my house.
It sounds
There's a
great.
window right here, right next
Yeah,
to
so
me.
there's that. And then when we hang up, I'll think of loads more.
That's all good. I enjoyed what you've said, and I'm now going to watch for that trend because you said it and it's going to happen. So, you have a team. So tell us all about your team, how you got started, adding team members, and what that transition was like for your business.
Okay, so I think it's really important for any photographer to have someone that they can team up with, an associate for, or second for, and the other way around as well. So when you're just starting out, can I start again? That was all over the shop. Okay, so from the top, do you want to ask the question again?
Yes, I'll
Yeah.
ask you
Okay.
again. Okay. So you have a team. Tell
Yeah.
us how you started adding to your team and what that transition looked like for your business.
Yes. Okay. So how I started was by being a second shooter for somebody else. This is back when I was shooting fashion. I knew I wanted to start doing weddings. It was a lot easier for me on the weekends, and so I started working with this amazing guy, Paul, and very quickly I started to get my own weddings, and then more, and then you get that thing when you just start out where you're like, oh, I've got 2 weddings on the same date. Shit. So within about a year, I'd had someone contact me saying nice things about my work, and if I ever needed anyone to work with, that she would be happy to. And her name is Jerry Jarmay. So then that started a 10-year long relationship where she would come and second with me. And then I think after like 4 or 5 weddings, then I know that she's good to go and shoot on my behalf. And I think the best way to do this for anyone wanting to get a second shooter, or have an associate shooter so that they can book those days when they're not around, have that person, that second shooter, do things like get the pictures down the aisle, go out on the couple shoot, essentially just take all the shots that you would be taking if you were here solo. And then that builds the confidence. I have very good, thick kind of second shooter guide too, which I help people through, and then showing them a lot of your own galleries so they get a sense of what they're shooting for. They're artistic people, so it's just like commercial work where you're given a mood board and here's how we shoot, and this, you can shoot in that style. That would be great. So yeah, so if you build up that rapport with somebody, and then eventually they kind of get your style, and each wedding that they might do, we might kind of just do a little review of, okay, so here we chopped off some hands. Here we, try to get the top of the arch in. So I really hate it when, there's a wedding, but the arch bit's not, AI helps that now, but it's pain. So that's how I added in. So that was just, Jerry came in through a DM, or was it an email back then? It was an email back then. And then I met my other favorite associate shooter, Colin, at an event, and he was shooting fashion and wanted to do some weddings. So he's been with me like 5 years now. And now, because I run workshops, then I meet more people that way. So that's the kind of organic meet and greet. And then there's more. Because I think at some point, anyone who's doing this will probably get to, if they really want to be anyway, get to a place where they're going to need an assistant. And that is someone who does your marketing, someone who does all your submissions, someone who takes care of your albums for you. So yeah, I strongly recommend getting someone like that to help you out, because it's just too much to do on your own and grow.
Yeah. So you talked about submitting. You have been published in some amazing magazines and publications. Do you have a favorite or a favorite wedding maybe that you published, or how did it feel for your first big publication?
Sure. So I guess when you get some good press, and like I mentioned, getting press via having a good PR person, and also having someone do all these submissions for you, and it really is. It is always a numbers game, isn't it? So the more that you submit, the more likely you're going to get something through, and then obviously just knowing these publications and what they want are really important. Trying to befriend the editors is always a good hat trick. And of course it feels fantastic. Do I remember? I don't remember. I just have a shady memory anyway. But I think the goal for most photographers that shoot weddings is to, get into Vogue and Elle and Harper's, and get a cover at some stage. Yeah, and I think if you just put that nugget in your head and have some sort of strategy around doing that, I can tell you to get free press isn't that difficult. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to, for example, pull together a subject. So say, for example, you asked about trends. You could pull together a bit of an article on what kind of trends you see happening in weddings, support it with some other photographers that are doing interesting things, maybe even grabbing quotes from them and some imagery from them, submit that to a favorite publication. You've just done some editor's job, which she was planning to punch out, late with wine in her bed on her computer on a Thursday night. Right. And now she doesn't have to. So if you pull together your favorite, that little list of favorite magazines or blogs, write down what you think each one of those will be after, and then write a little, get Chat GPT included in this sort of adventure, but it's a bit anodyne when you do just Chat GPT, so you have to be funny in there and put your own little taste of things in there. But if you then get those submitted off, you have a much higher chance of getting submitted because you've just saved someone's work. But getting seen, when you do these submissions for blogs, they usually have their own guidelines, and you can get lost pretty quickly in the fray of other people doing the same thing. So having some sort of strategy to usurp that whole system is great. We found what works really great, and the bloggers are going to hate me for this, but if you have like say 10 images that you can get your assistant or you to put in the email just as a taster, hey, listen, I've got this wedding. It's of blah blah blah. It's really interesting because it's quite eco. She didn't put any flowers on the table at all. Like tell what's really interesting about what's newsworthy about this little this wedding that you want to submit, and then just ask, are you interested? And then you know if it's worth your time, because the submission process is kind of long, and yeah, it consumes so much time. So if you do that kind of thing, I find your chances of getting a yes are much higher as well.
I love that little secret, that little tip that you just gave. That's good.
I mean, at some point, everyone's going to do it, and then they're just going to say F off to everybody. But,
Hey, that's all
might
right.
work for now.
You're a rule breaker. It's fine. It's fun to break all the rules.
I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, that was great. So you have shot weddings around the world. Do you have a favorite place or memory?
It's a blur.
Okay.
I can tell you that I love going to the States. Absolutely
Yes.
love it there. I think it's just because, well, hey, they stop at 11, so that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
That's great. But also, it's just the novelty, isn't it? So it does get a bit samey, and everybody's unique, and that's wonderful. But it is more, yeah, it's a different vibe out there, especially in LA. I love shooting there. So I would say probably I did a wedding in Santa Barbara last year. I just loved it. It was just, they were artists, and it was just so different from the stuff. I mean, we were swimming in the sea the day before for their pre-shoot. How fun.
Wow. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
guess someone from LA would be like, well, that's boring. I'd rather be in England at a castle. So it's all, depends on where you are. I can tell you, I don't like shooting in the Amalfi Coast.
Interesting.
Because the drive from Naples, if it doesn't kill you, it's instant burnout. The roads are so awful, and the Italians can be so aggressive.
I bet.
I had a horrible experience once where my sat nav took me to like a town square. And so I'm like scrambling to try to like re-sat nav myself because I can see all these signs, these people starting to kind of angry faces. And eventually they came and threw bread in my car. One crazy guy pulled open my door and tried to like grab me by the arm. And this other guy's screaming, and it was traumatic.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Literally
so
throwing
Italy.
bread at you.
That's Italy. So it's like crusty bits in my
God.
rental car. Not my problem, but anyway. Amalfi.
No.
Really pretty, but I've done it. Tick box. Yeah. If you're going to inquire about Amalfi, it'll be expensive because I'm going to get a private driver from the airport.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I'm not driving there.
Yeah. Well, we have offices from the East Coast to the West Coast, so hopefully we can work with you soon because that would be amazing.
I'm hoping. Secreting it.
Yes. Okay. It wouldn't be a podcast episode without some crazy stories. So do you have any moments that take the cake? They can be good or bad. I mean, throwing bread at you is pretty bad, but
that wasn't at the wedding, so that doesn't count.
Right.
I guess the other thing you had asked before was, what does it take to be a wedding photographer? And we talked a lot about kind of the semantics of, pre-planning and all that kind of stuff. But the other part is all the things that just make you a good human and there to do whatever, just be a friend. And there was a moment in the wedding where the grandmother was in need of someone to help her in the bathroom. And that was, there's no room. And of course, you just do it, you get involved. You're there. You're part of the fam. So
you are.
Is that crazy?
Yeah, that is crazy. That would definitely take the cake if having help grandma in the restroom. So
all of what that entails.
Oh no, the whole thing, beginning to end.
Imagine that's part of it. Yeah,
that's a good one. That is pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra, so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Please tell our listeners where they can find you.
Oh, right. On a plane. or at my kitchen table editing. Yes, so it's just at Divine Day Photography, and that's all the W's, divineday.co.uk.
Nice.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, you can find Stunning and Brilliant Events at Stunning and Brilliant Events. We are so thankful for your time today, Sandra. It has been a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon.
I'm buzzing. And I can't wait to think of all those answers that would have been better. Talk to you soon.
It's all right. You did wonderful. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.